Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we unlock the riddles inside Goblet of Fire, Chapter 14, The Unforgivable Curses.
Could have been titled Mad-Eye Moody.
This one could have been called Mad-Eye Moody, yeah, because we get a pretty good real introduction to him here.
We actually spend a little bit of time with him. We get to know something about him rather than chapter 13, where he's just sort of like him. He's in there, but like
he makes an appearance, he does a thing, and you're like, oh, okay, this guy. But like you also could have then just, but then it's like would you have called Mad-Eye Moody like the Triwizard Tournament chapter?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a fair question. It's the White Ferret.
The White Ferret, yeah, you could have changed that one to last chapter or something.
Yeah.
But in any case, what do you make of the chapter art here for the Unforgivable Curses?
Well, I almost feel like there's a little bit of a trend going on when it comes to the depiction of what is supposed to be the spiders in the Unforgivable Curses lesson that Moody teaches. Because inside of the films, while it looks like a spider, it's actually a tailless whip scorpion.
Tailless whip scorpion.
Yeah, you don't.
That's what I said. I was like, that's no spider. That's a tailless whip scorpion.
Yes. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Actually, fun fact, just as a brief aside, we were doing career day at Jay's son, Luke's elementary school.
Yes.
And we were setting up and we had like all these like Harry Potter artifacts and stuff like that. And the table next to us was like a insectologist or something.
He had a bunch of bugs.
He had a bunch of bugs, one of which was a tailless whip scorpion. And I was like, did you know, by the way? And he was like, I did know that.
Actually, I think that was on that occasion is when I learned that the creature that Moody was doing spells on was a real animal and not just like a magical looking bug.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they are pure nightmare fuel, are they not?
I mean, they are terrifying looking. I think I was like, well, clearly they were like, well, we're not just going to use regular spiders because that's not magical. Because like to me, it's like spiders are pretty creepy anyway.
Yeah.
So like, and it says spiders. So when they didn't use spiders, I was like, oh, it's because they don't want to use like a real thing.
Yeah.
They want to use like a magical thing. That because that makes it more like magical, but it's like you just didn't use spiders and you used a different real thing for basically no reason.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't really super make a lot of sense, but maybe somehow easier to animate. All of that to say though, that largely I think it's fascinating that in the chapter art for this, it looks very much like a mosquito.
I mean, it kind of does. I guess it has 8 legs, right?
So, let's see. 1, 2,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, maybe closer to like 10 or something. I don't know. 1, 2. No, those would be those back legs there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, it has 8 legs, but it like calling it's a generous interpretation calling it a spider.
Yeah. Like, I mean, spiders to me are not a difficult to depict thing.
It's one of the few things I can draw.
Yeah. And this does not particularly look like one. So that was about all I had. I was like, it would almost be funny now in the HBO series if they get to this lesson and they use like bunny rabbits.
Just like continue to refuse to use spiders
for some reason.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like don't know why. Actually, the other thing I noticed about this one is that it is, if you look at the wand closely, you can see there's some like little ringlets on the wand.
Yeah, you sure can.
There, which is like, this is, I think, the first like representation of wands as looking different or having some like style to them.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. Yeah. In the early days, I almost feel like they could have decided very easily, like we need some distinction between each of the wands. Like it makes logical sense for them to not all be completely similar to one another.
Right. They have to look like maybe a little bit different. But like, I think if you look in the first movies, like the one that like Ollivander hands Harry is just like a stick of wood.
It's just a stick of wood. Yeah. And then it seems like somewhere in the process, they were like, y'all, opportunity alert.
Yeah.
we can do something.
Merchandise.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, not for nothing, but the Wizarding World wands are like super top shelf merch.
They're so fun.
Yeah, like each one of them all has the like the mark of the person who would carry it. Like they're all so beautiful, and like eventually even like being able to like identify the Elder Wand feels like so much more relevant.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you need to know what that one looks like.
Yeah, it
you
is.
know?
It's an important looking wand. So yeah, whoever decided that the wands were going to have like very unique personalities to them,
Yes.
like really scored big. That was that's one of those things. Like I feel like that was the thing they figured out in the movies, because like in the books it doesn't really matter that much.
No, yeah. But and it's even fun too, because that's a piece of movie canon that I've always really enjoyed. Almost like assuming that the wand kind of like grows with you a little bit, like it almost like will be imbibed with a degree. I mean, obviously it can't change the core or the wood itself, but like Voldemort's wand looking so like menacing, like almost makes me think that like as the wand learned from Voldemort, it like kind of grew to be.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
that.
I like the idea that the wand can sort of like shift its like appearance based on like your personality,
Yes.
a little bit. But I also just like whether or not that is true, I like the idea that like this is a great example of where like the movies offer like a kind of canon that like the books don't counteract in any way. So it's like okay to just sort of accept.
Okay.
Like if you just look at the wands, as far as I'm concerned, how the wands look in the movie are just canonically how they
the wands look, yeah.
Right, because there's nothing to go against it and it doesn't affect anything.
Right, yes. It's like we don't have like a more canon version. It's like, hey, it's not supposed to look like that. It's like we never get any descriptions of the wands really, other than like Harry's during the weighing of the wands having like some fingerprints smudged on the side of it.
Right, yeah. That's about it. So even like the Elder Wand, its appearance isn't described.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. I will say, like, the way that Ron's wand looks, though, I don't like that one. It has this like very like weird looking chessboard pattern on it.
Oh yeah.
Which not my favorite. And also James's wand is like covered in what looks like Halloween decoration styles cobwebs or something.
That's a little surprising.
Yes, that one's a little corny, but like for the most part, otherwise amazing.
Yeah. There are some ridiculously cool ones out there, and they all like have like a nice weight to them. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, they're really fun. So anyway, we're off course before we've even gotten on course. So let's go ahead and dive on into chapter 14 here.
Let's do it. All right. So let's see. We have just moved forward only 2 days. So again, this whole book has only taken like maybe 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks worth of time.
Yeah, we're still averaging right in that territory of about 1 day of passage per chapter.
Yeah. So this is it's a slow moving book here at the beginning, but it says the next 2 days passed without great incident, unless you counted Neville melting his 6th cauldron in potions. Which do you think that means 6th since he started Hogwarts, or 6th in like this year?
I have to think 6th since he started Hogwarts, but maybe those reports that Percy was working on are actually like more important than we're giving it credit for.
There's people like Neville out there just melting cauldrons.
He's got some shallow bottom cauldrons. That's all I can say.
That's right. You know, Grandma Longbottom is skimping on cauldrons.
That's right.
Or else these are school cauldrons or something. I don't know.
Or that. Yeah. But we learn a little bit more about how much Neville just absolutely fears Snape. He returned from detention in a state of nervous collapse, having been made to disembowel a barrel full of horned toads.
Wow.
What is the size of this barrel?
I know. How big is the barrel?
Like
exactly.
Because I think I mean, this is going back to my college days, just a scooch here, but I believe the ways in which kegs are sized is like your standard beer keg that you would buy holds like 160-ish beers.
Okay.
And that is a half barrel.
That's a half barrel. I mean, if you go to like a distillery and they're just like, aging the bourbon in the barrels.
Yeah.
Those are big barrels.
They're big barrels. That's what I'm saying.
They're like 4 feet tall or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a lot of volume in there.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, Neville had to disembowel somewhere around 500 horned toads.
Yeah, you know what would have been cool is that later in the series, if there was a moment where somebody needed to disembowel a horned toad, and Neville's like, not a problem.
Neville's like, I got it.
Pulled out like a boot knife and just does it right then, right there. No problems whatsoever. Yeah.
I also, for the longest time when I was like reading these books, whenever they would talk about cauldrons, I would imagine like the cauldron, like a witch's cauldron from like storybooks, where it was like, roughly up to their chest in size or something.
Oh, like huge.
Like a cauldron.
Like a cauldron.
Like a giant cauldron. Like then you see them like in the movies, it's like, oh, it's like a little tabletop cauldron. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. But to me, a cauldron was never, something that wasn't enormous.
Okay.
Right?
So where would you rank cauldron size versus barrel size?
I would say cauldron's probably, like in my own imagination, like maybe about the same size, just a lot like wider.
Wow.
Like huge open mouth,
That's a big cauldron.
I mean, that's literally what I thought.
Do you think the whole class would need one at that point?
I mean, yeah, these are huge potions, I guess.
They're just single-handedly fueling the entire wizard populace.
I don't know.
Right there out of Hogwarts.
Did anyone else think that the cauldrons were way bigger than like tabletop cauldrons? How did you picture them? Were you about right?
I think I was about right.
Okay.
I sort of pictured like maybe the size of like a basketball.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Man.
Like for carrying your treats on Halloween.
I'm imagining, like, do you remember the kid's story about like the 3-stone soup?
No.
No? Okay. Well, never mind.
It sounds like a great tale though.
Well, they just keep putting rocks in the soup and they're like, that's the secret ingredient.
Is rocks?
I don't know. I think they're just like placeboing them into thinking it's good.
Yeah, I mean, they would almost have to be.
They were big rocks.
Oh, okay.
You didn't eat the rocks. You just like put the rock and it sank to the bottom.
I see.
Yeah.
And then you get some of the bits.
No.
No.
There's no rock in it. Yeah.
You don't. Wait. Well. Okay.
There is a big stone in the bottom of the cauldron. They're cooking for like the whole town.
You're understanding, the confusion, right?
I mean, I think if you think if you just like cooked a rock, it would turn into bits of rock.
No, I don't. I'm assuming as a children's tale, that's what would happen. Or like if it was like a rock full of like calcium or salt or something, that like some of it like oozes out, adds to the essence. What is the leaf that you put in like soups and stuff? A bay leaf. A bay leaf, yeah. Like a bay leaf, like a bay rock.
A bay rock. It's a seasoning rock.
It's a seasoning rock.
Exactly.
What is salt?
Well, I mean, salt is rocks.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's not what they were doing in this book. They had like a big stone that sank to the bottom and it was just there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tune in for our new podcast, Jay and Ben break down children's tales.
not what we're doing.
That's an extremely good point.
Excuse me. Harry Potter is for all ages.
It is.
Yep. All right, we're still on the first page here. Neville has disemboweled somewhere north of 500 horned toads.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. And then we said, you know why Snape's in such a foul mood, don't you? Said Ron to Harry as they watched Hermione teaching Neville, what is this, scourging charms?
Scouring, sorry. Yeah, scouring charm to remove the toad guts from under his fingernails. Gross. Nice.
And I think this is interesting because they're going to say, oh, Snape's in such a bad mood because Moody's here. But like, I think Snape's in a bad mood because his dark mark is getting darker.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do think that's, there's a couple of instances in this chapter where I know something about this seems suspicious. And I don't know if like maybe the way that this is being phrased just does a really good job of like making kind of like allowing you to cozy up to Moody because all of a sudden there's somebody that like even Snape is kind of fearful of.
Oh, I mean, so much of this chapter is positioned to make you like and trust Moody.
Yes, absolutely. But no, I think that you make a good point. He could also be kind of dreading the arrival of Karkaroff, which he
could be
likely knows is en route. But Karkaroff is going to bother him for the better part of the year.
Yeah,
about the dark
this exact thing.
Yeah, so you make a really good point. Like that's especially being around Moody. This is probably like where Snape may even know. Like, look, I know Dumbledore trusts me, but he's brought Moody in, and Moody's big on this stuff, and I don't really want him like spilling the beans to the rest of everybody else that like I used to kind of be involved, and I kind of got the mark to prove it, and like, that's not good.
Right.
Yeah. So I think that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I feel like there's like an unfair thing for Snape here where it says like Snape had disliked all their previous dark arts teachers and shown it. And I was like, well, but like also like as far as Snape was concerned, Quirrell was trying to steal the Sorcerer's Stone, which he was and was also Voldemort. So like that one's kind of fair. And like Gilderoy is a lying buffoon and is just not likable outside of being the reader.
Yeah, I mean exactly.
Yeah.
Like he's fun to watch.
He's fun
for
to watch
us, but like even McGonagall hates him. Flitwick, Sprout. Like I don't think anybody liked him.
Right. And then like Lupin obviously is the most likable person in the world, but was part of a group of boys that bullied him. So I'm like, I don't know if Snape had good reason to like any of them.
Harry's sample size, he's not working with a great one.
He's not. Yeah. And he did still make the Wolfsbane potion for Lupin.
He did.
But he did also tell everyone that he was a werewolf. So.
He also did that.
So anyway, not really trying to defend Snape. I just don't think this is a good point here. He's just doing a bad job of making his point.
Exactly. Yeah. No. We're with you though, pal. We're Team Harry.
Yeah.
Not Team Snape.
Obviously.
It goes without saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to coach him through a better like debate skill.
Right.
know?
Yeah. I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Cool. All right, let's see. And then they're like, well, I reckon Snape's a bit scared of him, And then, Ron jokes that imagine if Moody turned Snape into a horned toad. That'd be quite a sight. And then, Neville walks up and just disembowels him.
Oh,
that'd be pretty bad.
Man, that would be the ultimate foil.
That would.
So it's exactly like I said earlier. Like they stumble across something and they're like, hey, a horned toad. And Neville's like, not a problem. Boot knife. Got it right here.
It. Right. And then he'd be like, wow, maybe that detention was worth it after all. Probably not.
And then it like cuts the end of like the really corny high school, TV sitcom or whatever. And
we're all just sort of like the toads we disemboweled along the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. We're like, did Neville just kill Snape? Is that what just happened?
No, I don't think so. Hopefully not.
No, canonically we know that doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen. Yeah, that's Voldemort.
Right.
/ Nagini.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. Moody. They all arrive to Moody's class extra early, except for Hermione, who turns up just in time. Who Harry cuts her off when she tries to tell them that she's been in the library, which I think is funny.
I know, been in the library.
Yeah, we know. We've heard.
Yeah, when it comes from Harry, it seems so much more reasonable than if it's Ron. It's like, Ron, come on, man. She's allowed to be in the library. When it's Harry, it's like, okay, maybe it's too often.
Right, yeah. Like, Ron's always picking on her. But if Harry does it, it's like, dude, Hermione, like, get out of the library.
I know, seriously. Yeah. Seriously. But they hurry into their chairs. They take out their copies of The Dark Force, A Guide to Self-Protection. And they wait unusually quiet. And they finally hear Moody coming in. And the first thing he does is says, you can put those away. Which I think is just kind of interesting because it is like the exact opposite of their first class with Umbridge.
That's exactly what I said. Exact opposite of how Umbridge will start.
Yes. Oh my God. Almost word for word. The same note. That's so good.
That is so funny.
Where basically she walks in and she's like, one's away. And we're all just like, you're a toad. We'd like to disembowel right now.
Oh, indeed.
How well is this joke working?
Oh my gosh. This is working out great. If only Neville had disemboweled her.
Can you imagine if Neville disemboweled Snape and Umbridge?
Oh my gosh.
We're starting to have ourselves some fanfic boiling on the surface here.
Right?
This is good.
This is very good.
Yeah.
I like it. I don't mind. I don't think anyone would have blinked an eye if Neville had disemboweled Umbridge at the Battle of Hogwarts.
Yeah, definitely
People
not.
would have been like, that was amazing. Good job, Neville. It wasn't gross or weird that you murdered her.
It's kind of like how Molly destroys Bellatrix.
Yeah.
We're all just sort of like,
yeah, Molly killed someone.
It's like, what did you do? I don't even know what that spell was.
Did. Yeah, like she just collapsed.
But neato.
Yeah, that's insane. No one seems to question that one, do they?
Brick killed a guy.
I saw that. Indeed. Let's see. But then he starts telling them, he says, I've had a letter from Professor Lupin about this class, to which I'm like, wow, even Moody is writing to Professor Lupin, but not Harry.
It just makes me glad to know that Lupin has gotten at least one letter.
I know. I know.
And I bet he really took his time and was extremely thorough and sent like in a very detailed analysis of how the past year went.
It makes me just really like, based on this, because Sirius is going to finally write back to Harry in this chapter as well. And it's just the least helpful note ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, imagine if you'd send it to Lupin. He could have been like, here's a full list of potential reasons you're scholarhood, Harry. I think you should probably tell Professor Dumbledore. I'll communicate this to Sirius myself. Don't worry yourself with that. Don't worry. I'm an adult wizard and can communicate with my best friend better than you can.
Yes.
Here's several other action points you might take.
By the way, have a piece of chocolate.
By the way, I've included a slab of chocolate for you and a gift certificate to Zonko's.
Make sure Malfoy's not up to too much shenanigans.
If only, Harry. By the by, heard you were in the Triwizard Tournament. Here's a list of potential problems with dragons, underwater living, and hedges.
A pair of hedge trimmers. They were my dad's.
They were my dad's. You don't know why you need them yet, but I'll sure you'll find a good use for them. And Harry would be like, okay. Finally, he would get the joke.
Finally, he would gets the maze, and he pulls out a pair of hedge trimmers, and Crumb is like, "Oh, come on,
Hey, come on, man!
Someone clearly told him what was up."
What, these? I carry this with me everywhere.
They're my pocket hedge
These are my
trimmers.
pocket hedge trimmers. Oh man. So anyway, moving on, Lupin or Moody covers everything they went over last year, all the different dark creatures. Basically says very good, but you're very behind on curses. And he says, I've got 1 year to teach you how to deal with it. So he just straight up tells them he's only going to be them for a year. It's not even a mystery anymore.
Right.
Like, oh, is he still going to be there? And he says, yep, I'm staying for just 1 year, which he says is a special favor to Dumbledore. But this is another one of those things where it's like, it's true, but not how the students believe it to be, because he's saying he's doing it as a special favor to Dumbledore. But like realistically, like Barty Crouch Jr. is only going to be there for 1 year because he believes that Voldemort will just be back after this year.
And at that point in time, he will just be rejoining him.
Yes.
In his ranks. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally. 100%. Yeah, there is sort of a, let's see here. He gives like the weird smile as well. Moody's magical eyes spun around to stare at Ron. Ron looked extremely apprehensive, but after a moment, Moody smiled. The first time Harry had seen him do so. The effect was to make his heavily scarred face look more twisted and contorted than ever. Do you think that basically what's happening in that situation is like Moody is literally thinking about the reason why he won't be coming back? I think it's like kind of like a twisted smile.
I think he's noticing Ron, and he's realizing that, like, oh, this is a great chance to lie to this person, to like make a convincing lie or
Red
whatever. Red hair, hand-me-down robes. You must be Arthur Weasley's boy.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, yes. And then so what does he says? Your father got me out of a very tight corner a few days ago, which is like, this is such a... It's so annoying. It's like, he got me out of a tight corner a few days ago. That's true. He got this person out of a tight corner a few days ago. Not the real Moody, this guy.
Right.
And it's like, it's true, but not the way they think it's true.
I know everything. Like you can see both sides of everything through everything he says.
Yeah. He's such a gifted liar. And it's very, very clever. So I think that's what he's doing. He's just like, a fantastic opportunity to to compliment Ron, to get Ron to think he's cool, to compliment his dad. He already knows Ron and Harry are friends.
Right.
Like, it's just like, this is a great way to win the students over.
Yep.
So
that's what I mean. This chapter, he definitely is getting you to warm up to him.
Yes, absolutely. But then it says, so the last line on this page says, Professor Dumbledore's got a higher opinion of your nerves, and what he's saying is you're not supposed to be old enough to deal with the unforgivable curses yet.
Right.
But okay, my question is, do you think that's true? That do you think he talked to Dumbledore and is like, I'd like to show them the curses, and Dumbledore's like, well, unconventional, but yes. To me, or is he just saying he talked to Dumbledore?
That's the thing, is that I don't know, because I mean it kind of goes back to the line at the end of Philosopher's Stone where he's sort of like, everything that happened between you and Professor Quirrell in the chamber was a complete secret. So naturally, the whole school knows.
Right.
And it's like, it seems almost impossible that murmurs of seeing the unforgivable curses performed in class don't make it back to Dumbledore. It's the same thing as the ferret situation, or all the other little random antics that Moody gets into, where it's like, Dumbledore's not just going to allow this. There's no way in the world he doesn't know.
Yeah.
The main thing that makes me believe that, yes, he did talk to Dumbledore about it, is that basically he is saying, or that apparently this is part of standard curriculum. They do teach them in 6th year, and he's just jumping the gun on
that's true
when to show them.
Right.
So it's that doesn't feel totally unreasonable.
Right. Plus you've got the Harry favoritism.
Yes.
Kind of thing going on. And Dumbledore, even Sirius will say that means Dumbledore's reading the signs.
Yes.
Or whatever. So maybe Dumbledore is just we're going to need to fast track some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It definitely seems like there is, Voldemort's return is fast approaching, and these are the spells that he was using last time he was in power, and we're going to find out how he used each of them on the people in this room, or at the very least, I want to have a conversation about that possibility.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you go. I think that's where we're going. And then we also learn, we've learned before like in the last chapter, that his eye could see out of the back of his head. Now we learn that it can also see through solid wood as he's like spying on Lavender, passing notes about her horoscopes to Parvati.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So that confirms that apparently Moody's eye can see through solid wood as well as out of the back of his head. And he then asked the question, do any of you know which curses are most heavily punished by wizarding law? And it's actually kind of interesting that like it's not first referred to as the unforgivable curses,
right?
But most heavily punished by wizarding law. But several hands rise in the air. We get like a rare situation where it seems like more people know the answers than just Hermione.
Yeah.
Although Hermione does know the answer, but Ron's hand goes in the air, and Moody points at him, and Ron just sort of tentatively is like, "Is it called the Imperious Curse or something?" To which I think is very interesting because the next two curses that we're going to learn about, we know that are the Cruciatus Curse, which we know that Neville's parents were impacted by, and he's the one who gives the answer for that one, and Avada Kedavra, which Hermione is the one who will provide, but obviously Harry and his parents were impacted by.
Yes.
So the fact that like Ron leads with the Imperious Curse does lead me to wonder at all if there's any possibility that like Arthur would have been under it at some point.
I know, like the way he answers it is also kind of like suggests that too.
Yeah, he says your father would know that one, and would is in italics.
Yeah. So it's like he said, but then he says gave the ministry a lot of trouble at one time, the Imperious Curse. So like, is he saying Arthur would know about it because his dad works for the ministry, or he would know about it because of other reasons, like it was put on Arthur or like his family or something?
That's really, I guess, like the good question that we would kind of need to like just kind of keep our eye out for a potential explanation for. Obviously, it wouldn't have happened yet, but I have long believed that as of Percy graduating from Hogwarts, there's a decent chance that he has been under the Imperious Curse, and it's like part of why he goes like so in step with Umbridge's regime, and he kind of becomes like increasingly more difficult and very like ministry. I mean, he's always kind of like ministry oriented, but like it seems like by the end, the version of him that like shows up at the Battle of Hogwarts is almost like, I don't know what happened to me. Like I don't know what came over me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's sort of like, what did come over you? Like you've always been kind of annoying, and like that's okay. And even I think like in the epilogue, Harry like sort of overhears Percy in the distance talking about broomstick regulations or something of the sort, you know, and it's like, okay, like that's Percy and his personality, and we can't fault people for being who they are.
Right.
But some of his other behaviors, it's like, it feels like you've stopped being Percy a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Like, and even when he like describes when he returns, he's like, it's been coming on for a while now.
Yes.
Which sounds like maybe he's been like fighting it for a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, that is possible. But then there's also some verbal irony in what Moody is saying here. He says, your father would know about that. Gave the ministry a lot of trouble at one time. Literally, Arthur just came face to face with the, well, I was going to say with the Imperious Curse. I guess maybe not. But like, he just came face to face with someone who's putting someone else under the Imperious Curse. Which is Barty Crouch Jr., who's putting Moody under the curse.
Oh yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. So he's dealing with it right now.
Right now,
like Arthur just got hoodwinked a little bit by somebody under the Imperious Curse.
Yeah. Well, I guess he wasn't talking to like Moody under the Imperious Curse, right? He was talking to Barty Crouch Jr. disguised as Moody.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
but Barty Crouch has Moody under the Imperious Curse, so. There's that. I feel like I did learn things about this. I'm surprised Ron doesn't know all three of these. These kind of feel like the sort of thing that like wizard kids would just know.
I totally agree with you. Yeah. And even the fact that he's sort of like unsure about it, and he's like, is it called the Imperious Curse or something? It seems a little unlikely, but maybe that's just like nerves of answering such like a serious question.
Yeah, absolutely. But so now we get our first demonstration of an unforgivable curse, the Imperious Curse. He gets out one of the spiders. I guess he has to do, I'm surprised he doesn't do the same spider 3 times, but.
You easily could, yeah.
Yeah, you easily could, right?
Considering the paces you're about to put it through.
I know, right? It's going to die. But he pulls it out and starts making it swing around, does some trapeze tricks. It makes it doing some tap dancing. And everyone's laughing except Moody. Think it's funny, do you? You would like it if I did it to you. And then it says laughter died away almost instantly. This is another instance of like like Barty Crouch Jr. and Moody talking at the same time, though.
Yes.
Because this is like, he says, "You'd like it, would you?" If I is because like it says he's not laughing, right?
Yep.
Like, and you think, oh, he's not laughing because he understands how serious this is, or whatever. He, Moody, the Auror, understands how serious it is. But he, Barty Crouch Jr., has been under this spell for 13 years in a row.
Yep.
And he did not like having it done to him at all. Like, and I mean, even the way he talks about this one, it says, "Total control," said Moody quietly. And it's just like, is that a clue? You know?
I totally think it is. Yeah. I mean, it's like I mean, it's very hard to read between those lines because at this point in time, especially a first time reader looking at the words on the page, like it makes perfect sense. We know enough about this character to where it's like, haha, yes, it can be funny and that got your attention, but like this isn't funny. Like this is very serious. Like, you know, I'm doing a playful demonstration, but like imagine the real world. And it's not hard for me to be like, ooh, okay, you're right. Like that does seem dangerous. But when you know what's going on, I think you can see the duality of it. Like you can see both versions because you're absolutely right. I mean, he has been as of this point in time, at best he's been out from under the Imperious curse for what? Like maybe 3 weeks?
Yeah, maybe.
So this has been an affliction that has very recently been a big deal. And it just like we're about to see like with Neville, whose parents have experienced the Cruciatus curse, it's like witnessing it like is very upsetting.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it's like even for him, he's kind of like, I don't like this.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. But I mean, I guess he presently has his own father under the Imperious curse, right?
Also true.
Yes.
Also true.
So that's true. He didn't stop him from doing it.
Right.
Boy, and he's going to get so dark in this chapter at one point here. But we'll get to that. Let's see. This is the part I thought was super interesting because part of what's always confused me is that like everything about Barty Crouch Jr. makes it seem like he's like a really powerful wizard.
Yes.
And like super good at stuff. So I'm always like, why did it take him 14 years or whatever to break the Imperious curse on him?
Right.
When like Harry is able to do it after like 1 minute.
Like a handful of lessons.
Like a handful of lessons. Yeah. I'm like, it doesn't seem right. Like that this guy who's like very cunning and very like good at what he does, like can't break free. But I think he gives us the reason because he says the Imperious curse can be fought and I'll be teaching you how, but it takes real strength of character and not everyone's got it. And he has very poor character.
True.
You know?
Yeah.
Like he does not have good character. Obviously Harry has tremendous character.
Yes.
You
yes.
know?
That has got to be so like interesting. Like it almost makes you think just for example, that like a Kingsley Shacklebolt would be way harder to place under the Imperious curse than maybe like Bellatrix Lestrange.
Right.
You know, it's like because Bellatrix ridiculously powerful, but like maybe like to put it in video game terms, like a little bit of like a glass cannon.
Yeah.
You know, like super, super dangerous, but also maybe a bit more like susceptible.
Right. Yeah.
And that would make sense.
Yes, I think that's what it kind of comes down to. Because like that's the thing. I've always imagined it's like a matter of like willpower or something. But
Right.
It's not strength of will, it's strength of character.
Right.
Which really makes the bad guys the ones who are way more susceptible to the Imperious curse.
And that's sort of the double-edged sword to it though, isn't it? Is that they're also probably the only ones who would ever do it.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. As you have strong character, you're probably not doing it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That tracks.
Yeah.
That tracks pretty good. But then you're even going to see like Barty Crouch Sr., who doesn't have like the best character or anything, but he's going to break free of the curse like way faster than his son does.
Also true.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like actively fighting it, it seems, for most of the time he's under it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. So there's a little bit more to that. Obviously, like, you know, casting the curse on your son isn't great either, but his son is also a total like sociopath. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. With this weird little tongue flick thing.
Nope, that's not canon, Ben.
No, I know. You want to know what is canon that wasn't included in the movies though is the phrase constant vigilance.
Constant vigilance.
I couldn't believe this. I remember going back to like one of the earliest Harry Potter like movie or videos we ever made on Super Carlin Brothers and going and being like, oh, we'll throw in a constant vigilance right there. And like me and you were like scrubbing the movie. And it's like, does he not say it ever?
Does he not?
He doesn't
In the movie?
No.
That's unbelievable. They got to fix that.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goblet of Fire fails us again.
I know. Let's see here. Anyone else? Another illegal curse. Hermione's hand flew into the air again, and so, to Harry's slight surprise, did Neville's.
I know. Neville's having quite a chapter.
He is having quite a chapter. It does say, is this the first time that we properly get information that Neville's good at herbology?
No, there's been like one. I think in Prisoner, there's like a thing where they're supposed to be getting like a seed out of a plant, and
yes,
Professor Sprout's like, Neville's already finished his. Or
You're
whatever.
right. Yeah. You're right. Yep. That's true. But herbology is the only class that Neville usually volunteered information for, which is usually his best subject. Neville looks surprised at his own daring. It's interesting to me also that Moody is kind of ignoring Hermione. Like, it takes me back a little bit to Snape's first potion lesson, where Hermione's arm straight in the air and he keeps like drilling Harry,
right?
Which we all know is because he's just excited to like pick on Harry and make a fool of him and everything, like, oh, newest celebrity. But this is also kind of fascinating to me that Moody is sort of like, not Hermione, the person who's been impacted by it.
Right.
And immediately rolls in on Neville, who says, "There's one, the Cruciatus curse," said Neville in a small but distinct voice. Moody was looking very intently at Neville, this time with both eyes. And this is like kind of hard to think about because Barty Crouch Jr. is likely one of the Death Eaters that was torturing Frank and Alice Longbottom.
I mean, not likely. He just was.
He just was.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's looking very intently at Neville. He's just like, oh. He's just like sizing up his prey. Yeah. Basically here. He's like, oh, because he knows. He knows what he did to Neville's parents.
Yes. Your name's Longbottom, he said, his magical eye swooping down and checked the register again.
Yeah. Ugh. Dude, the way he treats Neville in this chapter is like straight despicable.
It is.
Like, I mean, I was reading and I was like, I don't think I've really thought too hard about the situation that happens like after class, but it is dark.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's really bad. Yep. The Cruciatus curse, said Moody, it needs to be a bit bigger for you to get the idea. And then he uses Engorgio on the spider. Then he raises his wand, points out the spider, and mutters, "Crucio!" And no sound came from the spider, but Harry was sure that if it could have given voice, it would have been screaming.
Yes, but so it starts, shaking, shuddering. Hermione asks him to stop it, looking at Neville, who has hands clenched upon the desk, knuckles white, his eyes wide and horrified.
Yeah.
Which, man, I just can't even imagine what Neville's going through in this moment.
Right.
Because like he would have visited his parents tons of times at this point, but obviously never would have seen what happened to them in front of himself before.
Exactly. Yeah. So now you're getting like a live display of the horrible thing that they would have gone through, and he knows the outcome.
Yeah.
So it's not just like being squeamish or whatever. Of course, it's actually really well done because we won't really discover. Well, no, we will. We will discover more about Neville's parents in this very book.
Yeah. When Harry goes in the pensive.
Yes. Yeah. But I do think it's like well set up. It's a piece of the story that really takes place over Goblet and Order of the Phoenix as it sort of comes out.
Yep. So Harry will learn what happens, but Ron and Hermione won't.
Exactly.
Yep. Moody tells them that you don't need, what does he say? You don't need thumb screws or knives to torture someone if you can perform the Cruciatus curse, which I think is funny because I think like Filch always wants to use things like thumb screws or whatever.
Yeah, so, but it's because he can't do magic.
Because he can't do the Cruciatus curse, which makes you feel like he would use it.
Yeah, it does feel that way, doesn't it? Just a little bit. Let's see here. Right. Anyone know any others? Harry looked around. From the looks on everyone's faces, he guessed they were all wondering what was going to happen to the last spider.
I can't believe no one else knows.
It does seem very surprising.
Right?
Yeah. This seems like it would be everyday knowledge.
It does feel like that.
Yeah.
Yes. But this is another one where I hate in the movie how Hermione answers the question like extremely gravely. Avada Kedavra. She's like afraid of the words or something.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Fear of the name increases fear of the thing itself.
That's basically so true in the wizarding world.
Yes.
Yep. But obviously then we're getting to Avada Kedavra, the killing curse, which every time it appeared in this chapter, I highlighted in green just for fun.
Hey, look
Yeah.
at that. That'll be a
go.
nice page for somebody.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look at you going the extra mile. I'm still in pink highlighter mode, guys. I'm sorry.
Wow. Geez, Ben.
I know. Nothing festive about me at all.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Not taking any thematic highlighting for the magical words.
My bad. This one is also kind of interesting because I can't tell if the piece of Voldemort's soul is activating inside of Harry at all.
Do you think? No, I didn't get that at all.
No. Okay. So
No.
he basically he reaches in, he gets the spider out of the bottom of the jar, which is actively trying to evade Moody's fingers, almost as if it knows something bad is about to happen. Moody raised his wand, and Harry felt a sudden thrill of foreboding.
Yeah. Maybe. Okay. I see what you mean.
Right. It's almost I mean, I guess Harry is putting all the pieces together here.
Right.
That this is what happened to his own parents. But
Right.
that sudden thrill of foreboding almost feels like what I can imagine Voldemort to experience whenever he uses this spell.
There is, man, it makes me want to go back to the scene in Deathly Hallows when they go to Godric's Hollow and you get the flashback from Voldemort's point of view to when he attacks the Potters.
Yeah.
I think there is a line of something like that thrill that preceded murder or something.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe a little bit of that, sort of just flashing
Maybe.
deep into the surface.
Yes. And then Avada Kedavra, Moody roared. So he just yells this straight up.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you imagine walking with your hall pass to go to the bathroom and you're what's going on in that
What
class?
was there? Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But then you get the flash of blinding green light, which is, of course, your clue as the reader that this is what, Harry keeps seeing because the green light has been mentioned a bunch of times.
Yeah, dating back all the way to Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah.
It's been one of the earliest memories that Harry has.
Yes.
And then I thought this phrasing was interesting. I don't know if I've ever really caught it in the past, but it says that the flash of blinding green light and a rushing sound as though a vast invisible something was soaring through the air.
Yeah.
You make anything of that?
I mean, I highlighted that and I said, what could this be? I'm like, is this Death himself or something?
Right.
Is
when you cast Avada Kedavra, you've almost summoned a thing.
Right. Have you summoned death to go hit that person?
Right.
Are you controlling it or something? Because it says a vast invisible something, and then I think it comes up again later. It says, so this was how his parents died, exactly like that spider. Had they been unblemished and unmarked too? Had they simply seen the flash of green light, heard the rush of speeding death before life was wiped from their bodies? And it's not death capital D. It just says heard the rush of speeding death.
Right.
But the sound, it sounds like there's a something moving.
Right. Almost like a giant invisible force of I don't know how to describe it. Yeah. Part of me, my mind almost went a little thestrally here, which I don't really know if it would apply at all, but it's something highly associated with death that is otherwise invisible.
That's true.
And it's kind of a force to be reckoned with. But I don't know. I mean, it's very, this kind of goes back to how is magic created, or is it just discovered along the way?
Right.
And it's sort of what would this be? What could a real life human have encountered in the world and magicified it?
Yeah, I don't know. We made a video about this once, how Avada Kedavra works, and I think our theory at the time was that it was lightning was sort of what it was.
Yes,
because
yep.
Which would explain why Harry's scar is shaped like lightning,
Right?
Because that's the pattern it was making, and because Dumbledore died, the tarot card is the lightning struck tower,
Right.
Which is death. So
Yep.
it's Harry has a lightning bolt scar, and the lightning struck tower is where Dumbledore dies, and that's the name of the card. So
it's very interesting that we've kind of got two very key Avada Kedavra death related instances, and lightning is attached to both of them.
Yes.
And it's almost this idea of a huge surge of electricity would certainly be enough to kill someone.
Right.
Although the unmarked, unblemished, healthy in every way other than the fact that they were dead.
Right,
Kind of
there's that.
To go back to like the Riddle household, like, you know, people aren't being harmed. And then I know that like a lot of people, the other kind of like common theory is that the wand movement would follow that of the lightning bolt. And that's sort of like how
That's
Harry's
like,
scar
like
ended
why
up.
it's traced that way or something.
Yes. Yeah. Like you sort of like would do like that same movement there. But I don't know. Yeah. I found that to be just kind of interesting. The vast invisible something.
Something.
Like, I've never really put like a whole lot of stock in the fact that like it could be like a thing.
Yeah. Like I don't know either. The other thing is that like death, like at least according to the tale, has an invisibility cloak.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So it's like this is another one. Like, did the Peverils make it, or is death like a real like entity or something? Or is like death in wizarding lore known to be like an invisible entity, and so like when they created the invisibility cloak, it's like, oh yeah, this is like Death's cloak.
Like
this
Death's
is how
cloak,
he's
yeah.
invisible. It's like that's what they're like. That's where the inspiration is coming from. But like Death himself is out there, and if you can harness the spell, you can like literally like shoot his essence at someone or something.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
but like
interesting.
Dementors are invisible to Muggles. You know,
True.
right? So there's that, and we think like we've talked about on this podcast. Like, is it possible that Death is like super Dementor or something?
Like the original Dementor. Yeah. That like sort of like everything else came from, because there's the one Dementor in particular that almost like looks at Harry curiously.
Yeah.
During like the Patronus scene in
Right.
Prisoner of Azkaban. It's like, what do you mean? You like it almost like pushes like the Patronus aside, and it's
like
giving
stronger than other Dementors, and we're like, are you recognizing Ignotus's heir? Are you recognizing the two souls?
right.
Or there's nothing special about this Dementor, it just happens to notice Harry? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. There's even the phrase though that like at the end of the tale of the end of the tale of the three brothers, that like Death greeted Ignotus like an old friend.
Right.
You know, like it feels like that's like what's happening. Like Ignotus, old friend.
Right.
You know, like weird.
Weird. I know.
we're way
that
off
one
track.
Dementor.
I know. I really like it's stuck in our brains. In a
I
way
don't
that
think we're off track. This is how Avada Kedavra works. We're learning about it.
things keep fitting.
Yeah.
That's just, what are we
They just
supposed to
keep
do?
fitting.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, and then in case you hadn't put everything together, Moody goes ahead and just spells it out for you. He says, not nice, not pleasant, and there's no counter curse. There's no blocking it. Only one known person has ever survived it, and he's sitting right in front of me. And then you can tell Harry's just like, oh boy, okay, so my worst fear is confirmed. Like that is exactly how my parents died. That's the spell I was hit with. And it's like weird because he's learning this in real time, but like this is also another thing where it's like feels like maybe Dumbledore could have told you about the spell before now. You know?
It does feel like this should be coming from Dumbledore, not from a teacher.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not from a Death Eater.
Right. Definitely not from a Death Eater.
Yeah, so definitely extremely shocking information that he gets there, and then you get another very nice little not like hint or anything, but like It says he remembers it, how Voldemort had killed Harry's father first, how James Potter had tried to hold him off while he shouted at his wife to take and run. Voldemort had advanced on Lily Potter, told her to move aside so he could kill Harry. So like that is how the sacrificial love works. That sentence right there is why Lily protects Harry, but James doesn't protect Lily.
Yes.
Because
exactly.
of the told her to move aside. Like, and you just read through that and you're like, well, why didn't he tell James to move aside? Why didn't he just kill her? Why did he ask her to move at all? Like, you just don't even think to ask it.
I know.
Like, there's a clear difference, and it's right there.
It's right there. It is so very interesting that as early as book 4, it's being written in this particular way, like with that distinction in mind, because it's like that does mean it's planned. Because that phrasing alone ends up being like the crux of the explanation.
I mean, that's what I highlighted though. Like, this is the key to it all.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the moment.
That's the moment right there. So that's when you really learn, and you could start piecing it together. Like, that's the difference. But I bet most people don't stop. They're just like, oh, okay, interesting. Harry's just reliving a bad memory, moving on.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
No room for pause whatsoever.
Yeah. But let's see. So Harry kind of like zones out as he remembers all of this, but then Moody starts talking again, and he gives us a little bit more about how he works. It says, Avada Kedavra, a curse that needs a powerful bit of magic behind it. You could all get your wands out now and point them at me and say the words, and I doubt I'd get as much as a nosebleed. Which is like interesting to me because he just said there's no blocking it. There's no counter curse. But it's like, if you got a nosebleed, that means they would have cast the spell at you and it would have done something. And you wouldn't have died, so you would have survived it.
I know. It's a very good point. It's a very good point because, yeah, it's like you'd have to assume that somebody in the clutches of being in a terrifying situation might try to use Avada Kedavra, even if it's like in a self-defense type of thing, you know, pin into a corner, like give it a go, and it like half conjures and doesn't work,
right?
You know, and I don't really know like where that lands, or if when he's saying like I doubt I get so much as a nosebleed, like if he's giving us a marker for like an effect, but what he's really saying is like I wouldn't even get a nosebleed, like
right.
Nothing would happen because you couldn't do it,
right?
And so maybe that's the real point.
Okay, that's
like,
yeah, that could be the
yeah,
difference.
But I agree with you, and this is like one of the first times because Harry Potter deals with like a very soft magic system. Like we're never given any really specific insight into the physical toll, or like, again, to use like video game terms, like the associated mana cost to cast a spell.
Right.
And this to me almost suggests that like it would take every bit of magic you possess to cast it. Like,
right.
You know, if you were playing a video game, it would use the whole bar. And
right.
It would have like a big cooldown time.
Right,
You know,
yeah,
like
you got to reset. Instant kill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 2 minutes from now, you can do that again.
Exactly, but you can't just go into like a swarm of like, you know, baddies and just rip them apart that way.
Right.
Because that would just otherwise be too much. So that's something I always think is kind of interesting because it's like, I always want to know the toll. Like, because otherwise, if you could just go into battle and just like cast spell after spell after spell, it doesn't really feel like the gradient of getting better at being a wizard, better at defensive magic is as important.
Yeah, but then it definitely seems like the more you've practiced the spell, like the more powerfully you can cast it.
Right, like do it
stuff.
like in a bigger way. Like the Patronus definitely seems like that. Like there's layers.
Yeah, like, you know, sometimes Harry can cast, like the Patronus Mist isn't very strong, but then like Harry's Patronus drives off like 100 dimensions by itself, and everyone's like, that's basically unheard of.
Yes, it's like, just beast mode cantering out there, ripping them all to shreds.
Exactly. And then like Harry's like shield charms always seem really powerful.
Yes.
And stuff like they like form like physical barriers and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a very good point. Very good point. But then Moody does go on to explain these three curses, Avada Kedavra, Imperius, and Cruciatus, are known as the Unforgivable curses. Is that our first ever glimpse at that term?
That is, other than the chapter title.
Okay, yeah. Okay. And the use of any of them on a fellow human being is enough to earn a life sentence in Azkaban. That's another one's interesting because we know that he's going to use the Imperius curse on just about everybody in the room.
On everyone in the room.
Which all I can imagine is that like that's a different version of it. Like you're not doing it like under the same circumstances as, what am I trying to say here? Like you're not doing it for evil. It's not like malice. It's like this is more like for demonstration purposes.
Like instructional. Yeah. Like in a controlled classroom environment. I would say he is doing it for evil, and he's just like, here's how I'm going to be spending my days.
Well, I mean, there's that. Yeah.
Good at masking, kind of accomplishing, killing two birds with one stone, as it were.
Right.
Yeah. But let's see. Everyone leaves the class and they're all talking about the lesson. Everyone seems to think it was like really cool, except Harry did not find it very entertaining, nor did Hermione. They notice Neville is
just kind of staring at the stone wall opposite of him.
Yeah, he is just having a real bad time with this situation. Quite understandably. That was probably quite traumatic for him. And then they almost get him to tell him. It says Ron gave Harry a startled look. Neville, what? So, and like later, Harry will be like, how could I have not asked Neville in 4 years of knowing him? But it's like, they did ask him right here, almost.
Yeah, I mean, like, Neville, are you all right? Said Hermione. Oh, yes, I'm fine. Neville gabbled in the same unnaturally high voice. Very interesting dinner. I mean, listen, what's for eating?
Yeah. What's for eating?
he's a bit thrown off.
He's absolutely a bit thrown off. And then this is the part where I feel like the more you know about the situation, the more absolutely disgusting the next two sentences are, where Moody shows up here.
Yep.
So what he says is, and it sounds so good, it says, "It's all right, Sonny. Why don't you come up to my office? Come on, we can have a cup of tea." And man, oh man. So here's the situation that's happening in case you're not keeping up. Basically, Barty Crouch Jr., the man who tortured Neville's parents into insanity and just caused this particular traumatic event in him in the middle of class, is now asking, or he's pretending to comfort Neville, even though he's the one who tortured them. And the purpose of comforting him is to further manipulate him into helping him bring Voldemort back and kill Harry.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's pretty bad.
It is bad.
And he's like, especially because he's coming across as being like endearing. He's even got like, I've got some books that might interest you. Like, it's all such manipulation.
It is.
Which, this is one where, oh man, I don't know. Like it would almost be interesting, in the like TV series to get like flashbacks at the end of the film to like, because you can't reveal too early that Moody is Barty Crouch Jr. Because anybody who doesn't know the story,
you have to make the show as if no one knows.
As if no one knows.
Yeah.
But like it would be very interesting if like as he's sort of like revealing who he is, Harry is like going back and like replaying these scenes in his mind. He's like, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that would make it pretty powerful. Because it's like you don't realize how diabolical it is unless you know.
Yeah, and it's just like he's basically like reaping the results of his own torture to further his own agenda again.
Yeah. Yep. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
But so then something kind of similar happens is like then they're walking away. They're kind of like, what was that all about? Hermione's like, I don't really know. And Ron is also not really like totally taking in the ramifications of what they just learned. He's like, some lesson though, huh? He's like, he really knows his stuff, Moody, doesn't he? When he did Avada Kedavra, and the weighted spider just died, just snuffed it. And then Ron fell silent, looking back at Harry, who didn't speak again until they reached the Great Hall. That's a little bit of like foot and mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. Ron putting his foot in his mouth. That's pretty Ron right there for sure.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm sure you guys all picked this up as well when, Barty Crouch says, I've got some books that might interest you. That's, of course, setting up for the second task. When they're going to be in the lake, magical water plants of the Mediterranean. Exactly.
That's where gillyweed is. Yep. This is when he gives him that book.
This is when he gives him the book. Yes. So even now, before Harry's in the tournament, and that's why it's so hard for you, the reader, to catch it, because so far you don't even know about the Goblet of Fire. Harry's not in the tournament, and Moody's already cheating.
Yes. Yeah. So that does mean then that Moody really knows just about everything that's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely already knows about what the second task is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's see here. So then we get the big question. Wouldn't Moody and Dumbledore be in trouble with the Ministry if they knew we'd seen those curses? Harry asked as they approached the fat lady.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm like, would they? Because like as of next year, the Ministry starts like imposing a lot of their like educational decrees and whatnot. But like it doesn't seem like Hogwarts, for the most part, operates under like Ministry guidelines.
Yes.
It's not like an extension of the government.
Exactly. And that's like one where it's kind of like tricksy to see, maybe like in a country where so many of our schools are governed by the government. We have like, in the state of Virginia where we live, for example, we have like standards of learning examinations. Like we are supposed to learn certain and specific things,
right?
Which at times, to like a teacher's dismay, I think it comes at the cost of not being able to do like the educational things that kids might find interesting because they have to allocate so much time to SOL curriculum,
right?
Which is like kind of meeting like a minimum standard of things. But you're right. Like, yeah, it's like I think that like Hogwarts must operate under its own jurisdiction, and then Dumbledore being so high ranking in so many other columns probably takes other huge pieces of defense where people, it's like, who's going to question him? Because he's probably their superior in just about every other capacity.
Right.
Other than Minister for Magic.
Right.
But let's see here. So then this is kind of interesting too, because this is the second time it's happened. I didn't catch it the first time. Attacks first. Let's see here. Sorry, let me go back down. But Dumbledore's always done things his way, hasn't he? And Moody's been getting in trouble for years, I reckon. Attacks first and asks questions later. Look at his dustbins. Balderdash. And Balderdash is kind of like a funny password because it almost feels like it could just be like the end of his sentence.
Yeah.
Like Balderdash just means nonsense.
Nonsense.
So it's like, it's funny that like the way that he's like ending that there, it's like he's walking up and he's like, like attacks first and asks questions later. Look at his dustbins. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Exactly.
Balderdash.
Balderdash. Yes, it does mean that. I kind of thought that too when I was reading it. But then they discover Neville there, who's reading the book that Professor Moody lent him, Magical Water Plants of the Mediterranean, which this is one of those where it's like, I guess it's a clue. You could, like, once you know that Harry needs to go beneath the lake, like, maybe you could piece these things together. But this is a very hard dot to connect because Harry doesn't use this.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. This bit of manipulation doesn't work. But like if Neville had successfully given Harry the information, or like Harry had turned to Neville, like you, the reader, might have been able to connect the dots a little sooner. Like, oh, Moody gave Neville the book, and then Neville told Harry, kind of thing.
Right.
But that's not what happened. So even though the line is there for you to follow, Harry doesn't follow that line, so it's very difficult to connect the dots.
Exactly.
Until much later.
Yeah, and it ends up being Dobby in the book who ends up giving it to him, not Neville like it is in the movie.
Exactly.
But then this is also an interesting line because Harry is sort of like respecting what Moody's done here. And he's like, telling Neville what Professor Sprout had said, Harry thought, had been a very tactful way of cheering Neville up. For Neville very rarely heard that he was good at anything. It was the sort of thing Professor Lupin would have done.
Oh, and that's the line right there. That line right there really puts you on Moody's side.
100%.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's gruff and different, but like he's like Lupin.
Yes, exactly. And it's like to be like Lupin is pretty high praise.
Yeah, that is. So that's this whole chapter is just about like making you like Moody.
Yes.
Yeah. Throw you off the scent.
It works so well.
It does. It's so frustrating.
It is frustrating.
But also like it's such a great reveal in the end. It feels so bad. Let's see. Then this is always like Harry and Ron then pull out Unfogging the Future to start doing their divination homework. And it's a very interesting bit of divination homework they're going to do here. I'm also surprised when they sit down to do this that like Neville and Dean and Seamus don't join them.
It is kind of surprising.
Like it seems like everyone would hate this class because none of them are good at it.
Right. Yep.
And like why doesn't anyone else help? Like whatever.
I know, yeah, it does seem ridiculous. And I also feel like I get like a very weird take on it. Maybe compared to like astronomy, which they actually also take. But like I haven't got a clue what this lot's supposed to mean, he said, staring at his long list of calculations. I'm like, I just have a hard time believing that like Trelawney is successfully making calculations.
Oh, I know.
Like she must know how to do this if she's teaching it.
Oh, I know.
But it actually sounds complicated.
Well, it does sound complicated, or maybe like not. I feel like the way they're cheating doesn't really make sense because it's not like they'd still have to be right about certain parts of it.
That's true. For her to properly grade it.
Yeah. Look, what does he say? It says like, I'm likely to develop a cough owing to the unlucky conjunction of Mars and Jupiter. And it's like, okay, but like you could make up I'm likely to get a cough, like whatever.
Right.
But like the Mars and Jupiter thing, like that doesn't matter. Like she would know that there's not an unlucky conjunction.
Yes, exactly.
So like either they're able to get as far as, well, there's an unlucky conjunction of Mars and Jupiter. I don't know what it means, but like,
exactly.
Like that, like are they able to do some of it or not? But that's not really the important part.
Well, what gets very important is that, like, as we always say, like Trelawney is like basically always right. Well, it's almost like she might even be like a good teacher as well, because it seems like Harry and Ron are about to be
they are
very close to the mark.
They are about to have such a fun little. If you ever watch Jay vs. Ben, and Ben writes down an answer, and once we find the answer, it's like, oh, but see.
Like you could see where I was coming from. Like it was like right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's about to be their entire homework session here, because they are about to do just a plot exposition foreshadowing dump on the rest of the book here.
Yes, they sure are. Yep. So they're making everything up. And Harry says, right. Okay. So on Monday I will be in danger of
Burns, yes. And then Ron says, oh, yeah, we're seeing the Scroot. So he says that's right, which, I mean, I guess he's technically correct. But really what this is foreshadowing is the dragons in the first task.
Yes. And you might be like, well, that's a bit of a leap until you get to the next one, because it says, okay, Tuesday, I'll lose a treasure possession, said Harry, who was flicking through Unfogging the Future.
And that's going to be Harry losing Ron in the lake.
Yep, second task.
Yep, in the second task. So now we've got the first and second task done.
And then the next one says, because of Mercury, why don't you get stabbed in the back by someone you thought was a friend?
This one's kind of a double header. You could either interpret this as Ron just sort of turning on Harry for half the year, but I think more specifically, this is Moody.
Yeah. So it's like even in the chapter that like all this stuff is going down, and we're like reinforcing him. It's like that is the type of thing where it's like, wait a second.
Yep.
But everything Trelawney related is such nonsense.
I know.
That's why I think it must have been so fun to write this stuff, is because it's sort of like nobody takes it seriously. So I can say all these truths, but nobody's going to believe it.
Right. Exactly. And then moving on, he says, and on Wednesday, I think I'll come off worse in a fight. And this is going to, you could put this one or two or both ways, but you could either say this is Cedric dying, or you could say that this is just like Harry versus Voldemort, and Harry comes off worse in the fight because Voldemort returns.
Yeah. And then so then we've got like, oh, I was gonna have a fight. Okay, I'll lose a bet. Yeah, you'll be betting I'll win my fight.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that one maybe less dramatically so with less flourish, but it just sort of does feel like the Quidditch World Cup has set us up for this idea of betting on sporting events. Harry is involved in a sporting event that Ron is spectating.
Yeah. I mean, this could also, like, maybe this is like some Fred and George Ludo Bagman foreshadowing or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Less ridiculously on the nose, but still feels like it's in the ballpark.
It's in the ballpark, yeah. Does seem like that. Speaking of Fred and George, though, we get a quick update on them. There's something secretive about the way they're working on the piece of parchment. Harry was reminded of how they sat together writing something back at the Burrow. And then he can kind of like overhear them a little bit, very conveniently for the reader.
I know, it's in a very quiet voice that nevertheless carried across the almost deserted room.
I know.
No, that sounds like we're accusing him. Gosh, be careful.
Right. So this is them trying to write a letter to Ludo Bagman, who has cheated them. And at this point, it sounds like we're accusing him. That means it sounds like they are at a point in their negotiations where they think he has not accidentally paid them in leprechaun gold, but intentionally.
Right.
And they do suspect foul play, but they're trying to still give him the benefit of the doubt, at least on paper.
I mean, and that's the thing too, is that like this is a very, I can imagine in the real world, this is a very sensitive situation where it's like you don't want to make the other person like overly flighty. You don't want to be like, dude, I'm about to call the authorities. It's like, let's just work this out. Like we can figure it out. It's gonna be okay.
Right. Like we made a bet. You gave us the wrong thing. It faded. You still owe us money.
Right.
Yes. Here we go. So let's see. Then Hermione comes back, and I thought this was hilarious. Is that she, like, I love the exchange here between Ron and Hermione, where she's like obviously doesn't approve of divination at all, and like doesn't normally approve of like making up homework, but it feels like she's just like, yeah, it doesn't matter though because it's divination and it's nonsense. So whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So she's looking at it. She says, "Not gonna have a very good month, are you?" Which I love that. And Ron's like, "Oh, at least I'm forewarned, though." Which I think, what a great volley.
I know.
But then she goes on to correct there. Like they haven't even been cheating appropriately.
Right. You seem to be drowning twice, said Hermione.
Yeah.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. Oh, am I? But I think that it sounds like Hermione's correcting their cheating, but I think this is just more foreshadowing. And the twice is a reference that Ron and Hermione will be in the lake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. Totally feels like if only there was a situation where some of the most important characters had to spend a whole bunch of time underwater.
Yeah.
That happens.
That happens. Let's see here. And then this is maybe the most forced segue in all 7 books.
Yes. Yes. This, I mean, we're going to zero in on you, page 223.
Yeah. You're, I don't, this is a dumb segue.
We've been working like house elves here.
Oh, well, wouldn't you know, Hermione's about to tell you about S.P.E.W. Convenient.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not very Not a very elegant segue.
No, not the best, not the best. But then, yeah, so what's in the box? Basically, this rattling box that she's carrying around. They take off the lid, show the contents. Inside were about 50 badges, all different colors, all bearing the same letters, S.P.E.W.
S.P.E.W.
This is, once again, one of those instances where I'm pretty sure it's Draco that goes on to make the pins for Cedric, the true Hogwarts champion or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, Cedric is once again copying Hermione.
Yeah.
Like, and he'll do it again in the future with like the gold coins.
Oh, Draco's copying Hermione.
Draco's copying Hermione.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Draco's obsessed with Hermione.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you imagine how big do you think these badges are?
I sort of imagine, I mean, kind of like quite large, actually. I was making kind of like a $50 size, but if you go to like the Disney parks and you're like, hey, I'm celebrating my birthday, they'll like give you like a big
old button.
Like a button.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm picturing like a button.
Like a button size thing. So
not,
S.P.E.W.
not like a soft enamel pin.
Right. Okay.
Not like something like cool.
Not something cool.
Yeah. It's kind of like
these are overtly uncool pins.
Yes. I think they're overtly uncool.
I think it is unbelievable to me as well that Hermione like named it S.P.E.W. and like calls it S.P.E.W. and doesn't understand why people are saying S.P.E.W.
Yeah.
I feel like as smart as she is, this is like putting tomatoes in the fruit salad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is it?
Knowledge is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in the fruit salad.
Nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's missing that mark here.
Yeah.
Because Harry's like, S.P.E.W. Not S.P.E.W., said Hermione impatiently. It's S.P.E.W. Stands for the Society for the Promotion of Elfish Welfare, which, if you ever want to get me to get a trivia question wrong, I always do protection and not promotion.
Protection of yeah.
So.
Okay. But then she goes on to say, I was going to call it Stop the Outrageous Abuse of Our Fellow Magical Creatures and campaign for a change in their legal status, but it wouldn't fit. So in case you're wondering, based on the letters capitalized in the text, that means that the name of the organization would have been the Sofmactals.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, it rolls right off the tongue.
Right off the tongue.
Sofmactals.
Yeah, Sofmactals. That's 3 C's in a row.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Creatures campaign and change. I like it. That's a good one.
Yeah. So there you go. SOAO. Yeah. SOAOFMCCCTLS.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's catching on.
Yeah. And instead, that's just their manifesto. And then she says, I've been researching it thoroughly. The elf enslavement goes back centuries. I can't believe no one says anything about it by now, which, like, solid concern.
Yes.
Quite frankly.
Yes, it is indeed. It is indeed. And it's at least until now, because she's stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, she's stepping up to the plate. And then I feel like this next paragraph, big Slytherin energy for Hermione here.
Let's see it.
She says, their main goals, or our long-term goals, are to secure house elves fair or short terms are to secure house elves fair wages and working conditions. Our long-term aims, including changing the law about non-wand use, trying to get an elf into the Department of Regulation of Control of Magical Creatures because they're shockingly underrepresented. These are 14-year-olds.
These are, I mean,
they're huge goals.
Noble, but big aims.
Big aims.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Big Slytherin energy, man.
Big Slytherin energy. That's right. That's right. Yeah, I got to get wages for somebody who's never had them before. So that's going to be a change up for at least some people.
Yeah,
there might be some pushback there. The laws about non-wand use is kind of a big one because goblins don't have wands.
Yeah,
and they are a lot further along, I would say, in terms of their independence.
Yeah, like the equality status.
Yes.
Which is to say, not there.
Not there, yeah. I mean, it's not perfect, but I would say the goblins have more steps forward than...
Way more independence,
than house elves do. And then, getting the house elf into the Department of Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. Like, that is where... oh my gosh. Amos Diggory works. And you saw how rude he was...
To Winky.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, even the people there right now are not exactly like speaking the proper language towards these people.
Yeah. Well, the Department for the Control of Magical Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures doesn't seem like they like magical creatures. These are also the people who were going to kill Buckbeak.
That's true.
Don't forget that Amos wanted to kill Buckbeak.
Yeah, he signed off on that.
Although, to be fair,
Lucius probably threatened him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He still did it. And then I like that she says, "Your treasurer, Ron. I've got you a collecting tin upstairs. And Harry, your secretary. So you might want to start writing down everything I'm saying now as a record of our first meeting."
I just wrote LOL next to that. It's just like, but then I love that she says there was a pause in which Hermione beamed at the pair of them. But I'm like, I do, like, she is very proud of herself.
She is and has no, I mean, and it's like, she has no idea that they're not going to be 1,000% on board.
I know. She's just like, it's so obvious to her. And she's been working so hard on it. And it's like, I'm proud of you, Hermione. Like clearly you're not reading the room at all, but I appreciate your pride in this cause.
That being said, thank goodness for Hermione's sake that there's an interruption.
Yeah,
the silence
I know.
was broken, not by Ron, who in any case looked as though he was temporarily dumbstruck, by a soft tap tap on the window. And it is Hedwig, who at now, how far are we? Maybe 3 weeks?
Yeah, because this was the opening night of the book, chapter 1.
Okay, yeah.
So roughly, like 2 weeks if it's a day per chapter so far.
Right. So Hedwig has finally returned, and Harry runs over and is like, "About time! She's got an answer," said Ron, excitedly pointing to the grubby piece of parchment tied to Hedwig's leg.
Yep. What does it say? And we get the letter from Sirius, which is more like a note, very, very short. It says, "Harry, I'm flying north immediately. The news about your scar is the latest in a series of strange rumors that have reached me here. If it hurts again, go straight to Dumbledore. They're saying he's got Mad Eye out of retirement, which means he's reading the signs even if no one else is. I'll be in touch soon. My best to Ron and Hermione. Keep your eyes open, Harry. Sirius." Yeah. So this sells you even more on Moody. It's like, oh, well, now Sirius and Lupin approve of Moody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's like to suspect him, and that's the thing. It's like it's why it's so good, because you just don't suspect him.
Yeah.
And it's not that there isn't evidence that could throw you away. It's just there's so much more evidence that's like making you feel comfortable.
Yes.
All the people we care about are like, yes.
What is interesting too, I don't know if this is like, I don't know if I'm just like noticing something that's not there to be noticed or whatever, but all 4 Marauders have been mentioned in this chapter, or like make an appearance in this chapter.
That is very interesting.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Lupin is the one that typically like sort of doesn't show up very much.
Right. Because Peter's much more involved. Where was Peter in this one?
Peter is mentioned back when it says Harry had been picturing his parents' deaths for over and over again for 3 years now, ever since he'd found out they'd been murdered, ever since he found out what happened that night. Wormtail had betrayed his parents' whereabouts to Voldemort, who had come to find them at their cottage. And then just 2 sentences later, how Voldemort had killed Harry's father first, how James Potter had tried to hold him off. So there's Wormtail and James. And then Lupin sent the letter to Moody, and Sirius sent the letter to Harry.
That's so cool.
All 4 of them are here.
I love it. A very Marauders chapter.
It is a very Marauders chapter. And I'm like, I wonder like if they're all 4 present more often, or if it's just sort of like, oh, all 3 unforgivable curses were present. So like, yeah, the Marauders, like we had like, they're all so connected or something.
Right.
Like, is it intentional that they were all 4 brought up in this chapter?
I don't know. I found that to be very interesting though.
Yeah.
I found it to be very interesting. Yeah. So we'll have to keep an eye out to see if like when they come up, if they don't come up in groups more so. Because that would be, I mean, at some point, Sirius and Lupin are such big parts of the story, it would be hard for every time.
I know, like in Snape's worst memory, like obviously all 4 of them are there because they're literally hanging out together.
Of course, that's part of the memory itself.
Right.
Yeah. But no, yeah, that'll be curious. We'll keep an eye to the ground, an ear to the ground,
An eye to the ground.
Keep it.
What is it, looking at nothing?
You'll be looking at, yeah. Well, you know.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. So this is it kind of comes with the classic Harry responding to all of the wrong things.
Yeah.
Where he basically just immediately starts freaking out, basically being like, he's coming back, but I shouldn't have told him. I made him think that he's got to come back, and I have like, what is he gonna say? If Sirius came back and got caught, it would be Harry's fault.
Yeah.
Why couldn't he have keep his mouth shut a few seconds pain and he had to blab? If he just had the sense to keep it to himself. And it's just like, oh, Harry.
Oh, Harry, stop gaslighting yourself, dude.
Exactly.
What a bad attitude.
It's like, yes, because it's like, clearly what happened was Sirius was like, yo, that seems serious. Like, I am coming. I am responding to the situation. Harry's like, oh no, it must not be important. And now I've put him in danger.
Right. Well, this is like Harry's brain getting away of his instincts at this moment.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Like, 'cause in the moment he was acting on instinct, which was spot on.
Right.
And now he's like second guessing himself.
Right.
Like like letting his brain get in the way.
No
so
good.
yeah, not as good. Harry's definitely better when he's just like acting off gut.
Yes, absolutely. Then he ends up being mean to Hedwig, which makes me so sad.
Oh, I know. It says, haven't got anything for you, Harry snapped at Hedwig. You'll have to go up to the hour if you want food. And I was like, how dare you?
I know. Nobody is mean to Hedwig.
No one's mean to Hedwig.
No one.
No.
Hedwig gave him an extremely offended look and took off for the open window. It's like, you could only imagine what Hedwig has been through.
Right.
This is like the most talented owl we know about, and it's taken 2 weeks to deliver a letter. It's like, Hedwig's been through some ish.
I had to find a guy who could be anywhere.
Anywhere. I've been living off of mice.
Living off I mean, I always live off mice because I'm an owl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so there's that.
Yeah.
Although maybe snowy owls are vegetarians. Is that a thing that we learned somewhere along the way?
Is it?
I don't know. I feel like there's the scene where she like eats a piece of his bacon.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a second. Snowy owls don't eat bacon.
Oh, I don't know.
Right, anyway, so we'll keep a weather eye out for that.
All
as
right,
well.
weather eye out for
We'll
that as
keep
well.
our eye to the ground.
Keep our eye to the ground about
Yeah.
whether or not snowy owls are carnivorous.
That's it. Let's see here. And this is bringing us basically into the last little piece of the chapter where Harry will go up to his 4-poster bed. He sort of like shuts himself in there. Ron comes up later and doesn't say anything to him, which feels like a little bit of like, set up. Not really set up so much as just like, we're going to see more of that to come.
Yeah.
Like the divide, like despite the fact that these 5 people are in the dormitory together, they're all not sharing a lot of information with each other.
Right.
About like what's going on. And that is also true, of course, for Neville, because if Harry hadn't been so preoccupied, he would have realized that the absence of Neville's usual snores meant that he was not the only one lying awake.
That is a really interesting sentence too, because it's like almost like whoever the narrator is just like talking to you, the reader, instead of Harry.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a good point as
Yeah.
well. Because it's like Harry not noticing something is not part of Harry's experience.
Right.
So it's like telling you
Yeah.
that that's
Right.
important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Like it's not like, oh, Harry realized that if I'd realized that if yeah, because that's exactly how you said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that brings us to the end of chapter 14.
It sure does.
Do you have a review for us?
I sure do. All right, today's review comes from Devin Wilson. Says, absolutely amazing. Hey guys, I'm a longtime SCB fan and even longer time fan of the Harry Potter series. I have a theory about why Dumbledore wanted so badly for Harry to have a, quote, relatively normal childhood. I think the reason has to do with him possibly learning a slightly misguided message from Ariana's childhood and how she may have been more likely to control and develop her magic. I just finished listening to the entire series for the first time on audiobook and want to revisit Dumbledore's conversations about Ariana now. Can't wait to get caught up. So it basically like, does Dumbledore want Harry to have a normal childhood because he feels like he's seen what happens to children who don't in the form of his sister?
Yeah, I could sort of follow that logic a little bit. Even the fact that like Dumbledore himself, even though it's not childhood, it's like it's a very formative time in his life that he is like on cloud 9. He's graduated with every award the school had to offer. He's I mean, primed and charged to just go and like take on the world and be important,
Right.
be a big deal, like start to amass whatever his future will hold. And even that is sort of like taken in the form of, like the death of his mother. And now all of a sudden he's like, he's this person like bursting with all his potential. And especially in his own mind, he's like, now I'm stuck. Now I'm stuck here.
Right.
And now I can't go and like live my life. So I could even see a world where it's like something that Dumbledore values very greatly in the same way that like he sort of like puts stock into other like very intangibles, like music being like far more powerful than anything they teach it at Hogwarts.
Yep.
Possibly being representative of like the Phoenix Lament.
Do you suppose there is a door for music at the Department of Mysteries?
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
I think there has to be. It
Yeah.
feels like it falls right into the category of all the other things.
100% it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would actually be very interesting. That feels like a cool spin-off series would be interjecting music into the wizarding world in kind of like a bard like situation,
Oh.
like a bard like character,
Yeah.
that can like perform magic.
Oh, okay. That'd be interesting.
Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Like a choir of toads or something. Or?
No,
No. You don't think that's the way to do it?
I don't think the choir. I don't like the choir of toads.
Me neither.
I
Why
find it to
is
be
that in there?
pure silliness.
Such nonsense. Don't need it.
I know.
Celestina Warback, Ben.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that's
magic.
magic.
That's magic.
Right in your ear holes.
Right in your ear holes.
Yeah.
Cauldron full of hot, strong love.
That's it.
Yeah.
But no, so I think that like love would be like another category similar to this. Like I think that Dumbledore, like a childlike sense of wonderment, I think is something that like I could see Dumbledore, like he knows magic. He knows the hard rules of magic. He knows how to perform the most complex things. He has a memory that's absolutely amazing. He is very calculating, intuitive. Like Dumbledore has so many fantastic qualities, but there is something intangible about childhood that I think that Dumbledore is sort of like, kids deserve this. Like,
right.
You learn something through using your imagination. You learn about yourself. You learn how you deal with boredom. Like everything about being a child to me feels like something that like Dumbledore understands and recognizes. Like there is no substitute. You can't learn childhood from a book.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, even like down to like it feels like he tries to keep that like magic alive in himself a little bit, like at all times. Too.
Yes, yeah.
Like with like his love of candy and using the passwords as candy and there's like
the nitwit.
Yes, that's it.
Oddment blubber tweak.
Yeah, just like here's just some nonsense for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. And or even like when he's talking about like the banned item list at Hogwarts, like he's got like the little smirk. Like
he's just like definitely don't get fanged frisbees and throw them in the hallway. Please don't do that.
Right.
Right.
But I think he knows that like there's nothing more important than that sense of I mean, even like what the Marauders do, I think that like Dumbledore gives it some version of a stamp of approval. Like certainly not luring Snape into the Shrieking Shack where Lupin could have killed him or something like that. But I think the idea of like a little bit of like breaking out in the middle of the night, the invisibility cloak, letting Harry find the Mirror of Erised, like it's like I suspected you might do this,
right?
I gave you the essential tools to do this.
Like he encourages like testing some boundaries in the name of like discovering yourself.
Yes. Here's a curious question, not to take it out of the lore and put it on you on the spot.
Wow.
How do you feel about that kind of sentiment? Like you and I in high school were not total like troublemakers. I wouldn't say, but
not really.
We had our fair share of like things we did where we were probably breaking rules and or like trespassing or something of the sort.
Yeah.
You never for malice, usually always just for our own sense of adventure or exploration.
Yeah.
What do you think about like the idea that your kids may seek such experiences?
I don't know. That's a good, I mean, so I was thinking about something along those lines this very weekend where amongst my 3 kids, I've got my oldest kid, Luke, is one who likes to challenge almost everything.
Okay.
He's like, you ask him to do something, he needs to know why, he needs to understand it. He might not want to do it. He might be loud about not wanting to do it.
Sure.
And it's just like, it can be a real struggle sometimes because you're just trying to like, we're just getting in the car or we're just going to practice or something.
Right.
And it's just like, just like, it's fun. I'm not doing anything to make you miserable.
You're going to be glad you did this.
I know.
Your friends will be there.
I know. So it's like, it could be that it could feel so frustrating sometimes when you're like trying to do something helpful and they're like throwing up walls. But then like my one of my other son, Nick, he is very on the other side of this spectrum where he's just like very compliant, very just like, okay. And he's like, likes to, if you teach him like a lesson, sometimes he'll come back and be like, yeah, because you told me this and that's why we shouldn't do it. And it's like, yes, thank you, Nick.
Right,
exactly.
Right.
But so it's so funny because like Luke can drive me crazy with the ways in which he like, won't like listen sometimes.
Sure.
But then sometimes like I'll be talking to Nick and I'm like, well, you could like push back a little,
Oh yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
Sure,
like,
sure,
well,
sure.
don't listen to just everything I say,
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
I do understand what you mean. And I almost feel like Hermione is a really good character to signify that kind of relationship, because it's like when we first meet her, she's kind of got that whole like, like you could get us killed or worse, expelled. Like it's almost like the idea of rule following, the idea of like doing everything according to the book is like exactly who she is and how she knows how to operate. And the ways in which the boys are kind of making her better, Harry and Ron, that is by helping her to understand that like sometimes
the rules are wrong.
So sometimes the rules are wrong, or sometimes you need to stand up for something, or sometimes like we are in the name of good going to cross that line, but we are not there to cause harm. We are there to cause good.
Right.
But we need to know that you need to know that we have to do that in order to do good.
Yeah. The greater good, as it were.
As it were.
Yeah.
And we see that, even like, by Polyjuice Potion, it's like they're finding a book from the restricted section. They're brewing a potion, without the permission of anybody. They're stealing lacewing flies. Like, these are all things that they're doing in the name of trying to figure out who's patrolling the castle with the giant snake.
Yes.
But like it takes a little bit of rule breaking to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even like forming the DA.
Yes.
That's a huge one. It is interesting where it's like, yeah, you're right. At first, Hermione's like, rules are rules, rigid, that's it. No reason to, like, why would you break them? Rules exist for a reason. And then it's like, well, sometimes things are more important than the rules.
Right.
And sometimes the rules are wrong. And that's definitely what's happening in book 5. The rules are becoming so obviously wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I don't even know. I mean, it's even an interesting thought there where like Harry's approval to be on the Quidditch team is like a first year. You almost wonder if like Dumbledore knows that Harry's time to get to be not that I think that this is like, I don't think he's like giving Harry a sympathy spot. I think he knows Harry's good enough to do it. And Harry proves that he's very good at Quidditch.
Right.
But like even the approval to allow him be on the team, it could be like this kid, he's not going to have a lot of time to have fun.
Right.
We need to let him have fun.
Yeah.
Do
you think, okay, this is an interesting, I've never thought about it like this, but just comparing it to a different book, like in the book Ender's Game.
Yep.
When all the kids are heading up to the space station for the first time.
Yep.
The commander like specifically compliments Ender like with high praise so as to make all the other boys turn against him.
Yes.
Yes. You think there's any of like Dumbledore doing that to Harry? Like, oh, Harry, you're the best at Quidditch. You're on the Quidditch team in an unbelievable fashion.
Honestly, that's kind of interesting because, not only is he on the Quidditch team, he also wins the House Cup by rather extraordinary circumstances by the end of the year. He's definitely Dumbledore's favorite student.
Right.
Dumbledore actively loves him.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thought. Like in Ender's Game, the whole idea is that General Graff, who is putting Ender in that situation, knows that Ender has unique responsibilities, that he can't be one of the other kids, that he must be able to rise above them. And it's like he knows that Ender is good enough to prove himself, but he can't be idolized. He almost needs to be like, people need to be jealous.
He can't think he can get help anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's an interesting one because Dumbledore does permit Ron and Hermione to know a ton of information that like Harry is not even allowed to tell Molly and Arthur. He's not allowed to tell Lupin,
right.
McGonagall, like there are adults who he could tell the whole story to who might have insights on how to help, but
yeah, he doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. He can only tell Ron and Hermione.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It is all very interesting. I like the thought with Ariana though, because I think there's even more to that whole story. That's something I would die to know more about. Like, what did the Muggle boys do to her? Like, what was going on? Why did their father Percival react so aggressively as to be placed in Azkaban, where he would just die, like living out his days?
I know it's really vague what happens to her.
Yes.
And it seems like maybe it was like physical abuse. It seems I've like seen online people think it was like sexual abuse or something.
Oh no, to
Like,
Ariana.
To Ariana.
Oh man, that's
So like I don't know. I think it's left vague on purpose to just sort of like let you wonder.
I mean, kind of like a fill in the blank with what you think is the version of
what do you think was bad enough for him to attack them?
Right, right, and maybe that's sometimes where it's like not using too much information is better than using more information, because anybody could step in and be like, well, what is the worst thing I can think of? And,
right,
and whatever the worst thing you can think of is punishment. You saw where the punishment goes, so it must have been bad.
Must have been bad.
But yeah, that's all information I want to know a lot more about. Even the fact that Dumbledore's mother, Harry describes her as like having like extremely like dark hair, like it reminds him of like in the indigenous people of America. And it's like even then, like when we learn about Aurelius Dumbledore, or Credence as we know him most commonly, being like sent across the ocean. This like idea of transatlantic travel makes me wonder if like somehow Kendra Dumbledore like left the Americas.
It's sort of what it sounds like.
It's almost certainly, yeah. And I mean, it's not a European who is leaving the Americas. It has to be somebody who was like native to America,
right,
who is now traveling in the other direction. And then the big question is like, why? And even at the same time as all that information was coming out, we were getting information about, Ilvermorny and Makusa and American. We need more information is all it comes down to.
We're not going to get it, Ben.
I'm mostly just venting at this point.
I know, yeah. We're not going to get those 4th and 5th movies.
I know.
Not going to happen.
Whatever.
I know.
I'll just use my imagination.
I know.
It's fine.
Just fill in the blanks.
I have lots of beautiful things up there, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's good. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Through the Gryffindor.
Yes. Make sure you, I think, as of recording this, this is the last recording before we're actually going to be on the road, on tour.
I know.
So exciting. So can't wait to see all of you out there, or maybe by the time you're hearing this, we've already seen you all out there.
True. It was so much fun, right?
It was so much fun. But otherwise, make sure the way it's going to work, we will be releasing the live shows, I think, on YouTube, right?
Yes.
So if you want to see the live show, you can watch that on YouTube. But then we will also be back in office recording the official episodes as well.
Yes. So in each upcoming week, if you want, we will do all the chapters here from the studio like we always do. But then we will also have videos of our live performances posted over on the YouTube channel, which again, we're still trying to hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. There. So be sure to go and check it out through the Gryffindor.
Yeah, otherwise that is going to do it for us. And make sure you join us next week for Chapter 15, Beauxbaton and Durmstrang, here on Through the Gryffindor.
Today's episode was edited by Ethan Edghill. Vaishon Brandon does our art. Catherine Stein is our production manager, and the show is hosted by me and Jonathan Carlin.